Good evening and welcome. My name is Jennifer Malloy and I'm the CEO of Royal University Hospital Foundation, and thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to begin by recognizing the land that we are gathering on tonight. As we gather here today, we acknowledge we are on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. And with many of you joining us virtually, we are also on Treaty 6 territory, the original lands of the Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We recognize these nations as the custodians of the land. We also recognize that the areas where we gather and work are historical gathering places for many other Indigenous people. Tonight is an exciting night for women leading philanthropy, and it is because of you, our WLP donors, that we are able to award our fifth $100,000 grant this evening. Thank you for your dedication to women's healthcare and research. Your support and your participation as a donor is humbling. I also have a great honor tonight to thank everyone that is involved with this program and this evening. I would like to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of the WLP Volunteer Steering Committee members who are working behind the scenes to drive the success of this program. I'd like to thank Tracy Brand, Lisa Collard, Chris Gordon, Angie Hicks, Kayla Lindenbach, Nicole Payne, Thea Pierce, Michelle Primo, and Kaylin Schrader. Thank you very much. And of course, I'd also like to thank our two inspiring leaders and MCs this evening, Program Chair, Dr. Mary Kenlock, and our Honorary Chair, Rachel Milkey. Together with more than 130 members, we are transforming healthcare and creating a history of inspiring women. Thank you. Our program would not be possible without the support of our generous sponsors. Thank you to MNP, Leland Kapinski, Aspen Films, Encore, D&M Images, Handy Special Events, Hilberg and Burke, and Veralingo. Thank you to our sponsors. And last but certainly not least, I want to acknowledge Sky Planning Group. Tracy Duff has been so generous since the inception of this program through her sponsorship. Thank you, Tracy. Sorry. Tracy is not here this evening, but she has put together a short video about why she is so passionate about WLP and why she has made RUH Foundation's Women Leading Philanthropy her charity of choice. Thank you and enjoy the evening.
Well, thank you. Even though I'm sad to miss everyone tonight, this is going to be an inspirational event. This is the fifth WLP $100,000 grant, and you will have a difficult time choosing who is going to be the recipient for 2022. It's a great point of pride for Sky Planning Group to be the program sponsor for WLP. WLP is about the advancement of healthcare by the way of you donors. These donations create the grant each year, and these grants move forward opportunities for our female health practitioners. These projects are farther reaching than you can imagine. You will be out and about one day and you're going to hear a story from a person that you're going to know is part of the advancement from the donation that you made for this grant project. This is going to make each of us smile. Which is why Sky Planning Group and WLP align so well as we advocate for women to take care of our whole selves, whether it be empowering one another through the advancement of healthcare or by sharing with our peers what WLP is all about and the talent that is presented to us each year. I feel very passionate about the good work being done with this amazing group of women and the reach WLP has in transforming healthcare for women. I would encourage those of you as guests here to consider joining this amazing group. Join us in making a positive impact that could benefit any one of us at any time. Best of luck to the shortlisted participants. You will be more than brilliant.
What an inspiring message. Thank you so much to Tracy for sharing that and for, of course, being a continual sponsor of tonight's event. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome everyone who is joining us both in person and virtually. The organizing committee of WLP has done such a fabulous job of seamlessly taking us through COVID and ensuring that we have an experience that's both in person and virtually so that women from across the province can join us. I am so excited to be here in person at the beautiful Ramey Arts Centre, and we are honored to have Mrs. Ramey here tonight. I know that you're all going to be as inspired as I feel by these three amazing women physicians presenting here tonight in hopes of being awarded tonight's $100,000 WLP grant. As always, we'll try and bring you a seamless experience, but if you are joining us virtually and at any point you have any technical issues, please just reach out to us in the Zoom chat box and we will try to resolve the issue as quickly as we can. As WLP donors, tonight you hold a unique responsibility. You get to make a very important decision, a $100,000 decision that will improve and save lives for women in Saskatchewan. As a donor and WLP honorary chair, this is a privileged decision and I'm honored to make it myself. And I know you and the people at home joining us are as well.
Well, thanks, Rachel, and it's so nice to see you, and thank you for coming back to Saskatoon to be in person for this event. It's always nice to welcome you home.
Wouldn't miss it.
Yeah. And so for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Mary Kenlock, and I'm a physician with the Saskatchewan Health Authority. I'm a specialist pathologist, and I am also honored to be part of this program from its inception. And as our membership has grown over the last year, many of you have been joining it since the first Women Leading Philanthropy event that we had, but some of you it's just your first time here. So there's a number of guests that we want to let know about the accountability of the program at Women Leading Philanthropy. So for the first time ever, guests who are in attendance this evening will have the opportunity to sign up as donors and be able to cast their vote for the project that they feel should be awarded the $100,000 grant. And we'll have more on this later, but I am looking forward to announcing who our three finalists are and introducing them to you. But first of all, I would like to provide just a brief explanation of how we got here to this pitch event. And we do like to present an experiential event for all of our donors. We know that you all have busy lives and you have a choice of coming to this event and donating to this cause. So earlier this year, applications for the WLP grant were invited from female clinicians and researchers at the Royal University Hospital. And then these applications were evaluated by a peer review committee consisting of representatives from the medical profession, the Royal Foundation Volunteer Board, the WLP Steering Committee, and business leaders. And then this rigorous process resulted in the three shortlisted projects from the female clinicians that you'll hear about tonight. And what's most exciting to me about these brilliant women is that they are diverse projects. They're projects from far-reaching aspects of our healthcare system, that they are on the edge of what we would see as intersection between standard of care and pushing it so that we can get transformative healthcare. And I love the fact that we are reaching out to early career physicians and clinicians so that we can provide that support to them so that they can be successful for their career in medicine.
I think I neglected to introduce myself earlier.
Everybody knows who you are,
well,
Rachel.
If anyone doesn't know who I am, it was my enthusiasm for just getting started with the meeting. But anyways, if you don't know who I am, I'm Rachel, founder of Hilberg and Burke. But I'm so excited about this role that I hold, because this group is doing incredibly powerful work. And so if you're experiencing it for the first time tonight, I'm so happy that you're here, because you're going to be amazed and inspired, as I am every single meeting. And we're really just thrilled to have you all here tonight. When we empower women, we all benefit. Women, our families, and the entire community. Women Leading Philanthropy continues to inspire me, not only because I am a mother of a daughter. I am someone who has relatives in the province, but I've also had my own healthcare journey in Saskatchewan that was incredibly unexpected, going through cervical cancer a few years ago. And so when I joined this program, I had no idea, hearing the pitches talking about surgical improvements or cervical cancer and different ways to detect it earlier in the province would be a part of my life. But you never know what's coming down the road for any of us or our family members. And that's why I think this program is so important, because this group of women is taking our healthcare in the province into their own hands, not waiting for change to happen, but actually making the change. So it's really, really exciting to be a part of it. So shortly, each of our 3 finalists will have the opportunity to pitch their innovative projects and illustrate how an investment in their work will improve practice and transform healthcare for women. But first, we want to provide you with an overview of the evening.
So each of the finalists is going to have 15 minutes to present their project to you. And then we're going to have a short video. And then followed by the video, we're going to have a Q&A session led by myself. If you wish to take notes, you'll see the space provided in your program, or feel free to use your Women Leading Philanthropy journal that you've been provided.
Each WLP voting member will have the opportunity to cast a vote electronically during the voting period later this evening. So if you are a WLP donor, you will have been provided a QR code inside your program that you can scan with your phone's camera. You just hold up the camera to the QR code and it automatically pops up the place where you can cast your vote. We want to make sure everyone's comfortable with the technology though. So we're going to ask you in a quick minute to do a practice session. So take out your phone and scan your QR code, and you're gonna answer a very important question, whether dogs are smarter than cats. And once your votes have been entered, you'll get a little green check mark, and that is your indication that your vote has been counted. If you're in the room and you're having any challenges, please raise your hand and we'll help you work through those. And if you're at home watching and you have any technical difficulties, just comment in the Zoom box and we'll help you out.
See lots of movement here, all good things. No hands yet. Maybe some thumbs up if we get it. Yeah? Oh, I've got a thumbs up from Chris. I've got another thumbs up from the back there. So it looks like we're doing pretty good.
Is anyone having any issues? Looks.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, awesome. So following the 3 presentations, we'll provide instructions on how to place your vote for the project that you would like this year to receive the $100,000 Women Leading Philanthropy grant. At this time, we will also give guests the opportunity to sign up for a membership in WLP if you would like to make your vote count this evening as well. And while all 3 projects are absolutely worthy of the funding, only the project receiving the highest number of votes this evening will receive the $100,000 WLP grant.
So we look forward to announcing this year's WLP grant recipient later tonight, following an update presentation from Dr. Brown Roderick, our last year's grant winner. So I'd like to formally introduce now our finalists this year. Please join me in welcoming to the stage, and we'll have our bagpiper welcome them in, Dr. Sarah Donkers, Dr. Sarah Hinchke, and Dr. Jody Reese.
Thank you so much for each of you being here tonight. When I think about how busy your lives are and how much you do already for your patients and society, and on top of this, you're taking on this project and like really taking on, you know, a huge extra workload if you get tonight's grant recipient. It's very inspiring. And so I just want to say thank you on behalf of all of us for putting forward your projects, for the time that you've taken to think about them, and for the care that you have about patients in the province enough to like put forward this project. Thank you so much. As I stand here with these inspiring women, I can't help but reflect on how much of an impact women's healthcare and WLP has had in just 5 short years. After tonight's grant is awarded, WLP and all of our donors will have invested and raised $600,000 to advance women's leadership and healthcare. Thank you. You are making a difference. As each of the applicants present, we want to remind you that they are all worthy of the Women Leading Philanthropy Grant. We know that this is going to be a difficult decision to make, and while some of you may have come with criteria in mind for how you're going to assess the pitches, we wanted to just give you a few points for thinking about as well. So you might want to consider, is this project innovative? Will it improve care in our community and at the Royal University Hospital? Is the project relevant to what matters most to you, your family and friends, and for future care in our community and at the Royal University Hospital? Just want to say good luck to each of you this evening, and thank you.
Thanks.
So I'd like to introduce you to our first presenter of this evening, Dr. Sarah Donkers and her project, New Hope in MS, promoting functional neurorecovery through early intervention. Dr. Donkers is an associate professor at the College of Medicine at the University of Saskatchewan, as well as the Saskatchewan Director of MS Clinical Research, a principal investigator with MS Neuroscience Research Center, a certified MS specialist, and the co-lead of MS Best, a Canadian initiative developing best practice guidelines for MS rehabilitation. She is a neuropsychotherapist by clinical training and a neuroscientist by research training. Sarah's work focuses on improving access to and quality of neurorehabilitation interventions that promote recovery and optimizing quality of life for individuals with neurological conditions. With rapid advancement in our understanding of the nervous system and its remarkable ability to repair, it's an exciting time for neurorehabilitation. Best of luck, Dr. Donkers.
My name is Sarah Donkers. I am an assistant professor in the College of Medicine at the University of Saskatchewan, where I get to teach and research neurology content, specifically the neuro rehab content. I'm actually a physical therapist by clinical training and a neuroscientist by research training. And so I get to combine both of my passions and look at interventions, neuro rehab interventions that promote recovery of function, especially for people living with multiple sclerosis or MS. So MS is a complex disease. It affects predominantly women, but it also tends to onset when women are in the prime of their lives. It limits their ability to engage with their community and really participate in their meaningful life tasks. And we need to do better at addressing this. MS is progressive, it's degenerative, and currently there is no cure. A diagnosis of MS often comes with vision problems, neuropathic pain, overwhelming fatigue, and this fatigue sometimes means you have to choose just one thing you can physically do in a day. It can come with balance challenges, walking, coordination, muscle spasms, and muscle weakness. and this can affect anywhere in the body. That includes the muscles that control our bowel, our bladder, and our sexual function. Another challenge of MS is the symptoms fluctuate, so this can mean unpredictability and uncertainty, which is hard to deal with. There's currently no way to know when MS will worsen or progress. That represents a substantial gap in our understanding of MS, but also our ability to deliver preventative care. So our project is a two-part research study. We'll look at access to evidence-based neurorehabilitation, and for the first time in Saskatchewan, we'll be able to use blood samples to look for new and unique blood biomarkers of MS disease progression. We will deliver and evaluate a neurorecovery-based bout of rehabilitation. So this is designed to focus on improvements, focus on gains in function and symptom management, and that's not always the case in a degenerative disease. MS is a condition that can take so much. So we want to focus on supporting women with MS to develop the skill set that can help them live well despite their MS.
When I was first diagnosed with MS, besides the physical things that happened, so for example, when I fell at the Calgary airport, which was humiliating, that really wasn't the worst thing. The most difficult thing was not being able to talk to even the experts about what I was experiencing because my language was gone. The thing that I have always been good at is being articulate, and I lost that. And it was absolutely disorienting and terrifying. Because if you don't know how to describe what you're feeling, then how do you get help? And how do you let people know what is wrong? And that's the biggest piece for me with MS that's difficult. And one of the things I said to my spouse in the early part of 2016 when this was all going on, is that if and when my brain gets back to some kind of equilibrium, one of the things that I would do for the rest of my life was to be an advocate for people with MS. Because so many of us, with the pain medications that we're on, with the fatigue, when it comes to advocating ourselves, it's very difficult. I hope that the research that we are embarking on here is going to help other people talk about their experience, be able to state what it is they need, and be able to find some form of equilibrium and health as we can understand it with those of us who have MS.
For dozens of years, my patients always ask me the same question. Even though I'm on an MS drug, why am I getting worse and what can I do to stop it? That's why this study is so important. This team of brilliant women are going to actually crack the code and answer this question. First, they're going to do it clinically with a rehab intervention so people get treated right away. And second, they're going to do it scientifically by using cutting-edge molecular technology to find a biomarker that measures why people get worse.
So I don't know if you're aware, but that's actually our first time seeing the videos as well. So as the applicants. Wow. Thank you to Riley and Trish for making that happen. And thank you to all of you for being here tonight, for making this evening possible, and for creating this funding opportunity. What a special initiative. So, multiple sclerosis. Unfortunately, in Saskatchewan, we are all too familiar with this term and with this devastating disease. Saskatchewan does have the highest rate of MS in the world. So statistically speaking, I can guarantee you that there are women in this room living with MS. And unfortunately, several of us will have loved ones, our friends, or our family who are also living with MS, or will go on to develop an MS diagnosis. That is why this project is so important. It is Saskatchewan funding for a Saskatchewan initiative for Saskatchewan disease. So I'm Sarah Donkers. I will bring my clinical and research expertise to this project. However, it takes a team to make meaningful change. So our project includes women living with MS, like Lois, who's here tonight and you've seen in the video. It will also include cell scientists like Hannah, who you'll hear from in a moment. We have also partnered with the Saskatchewan MS Clinic so that your donations, your money is going to help us not only support the cohort of women in our research study for the next year, but it will lead to some sustainable improvements in MS care for all women living with MS. And that could include us, our moms, our sisters, aunties, daughters, partners, and friends to come. So clinically, our project is going to deliver and evaluate a bout of rehabilitation that's focusing on the functional improvement, as well as giving women with MS the self-management skill set, which is really critical to living well despite an MS diagnosis. Because it's a research project, though, we'll also have publishable findings. So it's going to lead to new knowledge, and we can share our results as well as our lessons learned internationally. This means you will help change the future of MS, both here in Saskatchewan, but also worldwide. We've come a long way in both the treatment and our understanding of MS, especially the pharmacological or drug management. But these current drugs only address the immune and the inflammatory component. There's still a huge gap in what we know in research about delivering comprehensive care in MS versus what we actually deliver in current clinical practice. And this gap particularly has to do with rehabilitation. We all want a cure for MS, definitely, but we also need to support the women currently living with MS. And that is what our project will do. We are going to support them by providing functional improvements, providing symptom management, and providing new hope, which is the other component of our project. So I mentioned that the MS drugs do really good at the immune and inflammatory component. However, they do not take away the symptoms, and these are the devastating symptoms that limit women living with MS from doing what they love. So unfortunately, even one bout of inflammation in the brain or the nervous system can program nerve cell death. And it is this nerve cell death that actually leads to the disease progression. And that's what we want to study, and that's what we want to try and stop. And that's what is new hope for this project. So that is also why I have Hannah here with me today. She is also partnering with me on the project because she's going to be looking at that cellular component. So in addition to delivering the rehab, we're going to do a series of blood samples where we'll actually investigate for novel blood biomarkers of disease progression. Pretty cool.
Thanks, Sarah, and thank you for all of you for being here this evening and for giving us the opportunity to talk about our project. I'm a neuroscientist, and I've devoted my career to understanding why brain and spinal cord cells die in MS. Despite MS being Saskatchewan's disease, we currently have not been able to perform these studies previously because we don't have the resources, which is why your funding is so important. Well, we've been able to gather preliminary information from animal models and donated samples about the changes associated with disease progression. We have not yet been able to gather enough information to guide clinical care directly from patients experiencing disease. Over the next year, we will gather blood samples from women living with MS to analyze them to identify RNA blood signatures. While there are other studies looking at blood signatures, they work to alleviate inflammation, and they do not target the brain and spinal cord cell death, making our project unique and cutting edge. We would be among the first ones to look at unique RNA blood signatures that identify levels of progression in disease, which would help guide the future of care for women living with MS. By working directly with these women, we will establish indicators of progression, allowing us to catch women before they experience debilitating symptoms and intervene to allow women to maintain their daily lives. This would help women like Lois, who you saw in the video, to not have to give up so much of their identities. These findings will also inform future clinical trials so that we can find drugs to permanently better the lives of women living with MS. Your funds would go directly towards bettering the lives of women living with MS in Saskatchewan and in future, the world. This would be a catalyst for moving our studies from animals to human and allow women like us to be part of leading the charge in improving the care and livelihood of people living with MS. This is new hope in MS.
Who's asking questions?
Hi. Thank you. Amazing, so inspiring. I have a couple questions for you folks. So can you tell us what it would look like then in, say, 1 to 3 years after your project is completed? What would it look like then in Saskatchewan for MS patients? How would it be different?
Good question. So most immediately, we're going to have a better understanding. Like the funding is going to help us dedicate the time and the resources to the services that will help us actually improve care. So in the short term, our goal is that everybody will have access, so equitable access to evidence-based rehab, right? So we can offer more than just pharmaceutical management or what's called sometimes reactive or compensatory management, and we can actually focus on early intervention, which in research has shown to be the most critical, and comprehensive intervention, which includes addressing functional impairments and symptom management. But so equitable access to care, and then hopefully we will be starting clinical research and drug trials looking at preventing disease progression once we identify these biomarkers.
And it's really easy for us to take blood samples routinely and to look at the unique RNA blood signatures associated with progression. And so hopefully if we can take a sample and look at it and say, okay, this person is predisposed to progressing at this point, then we can have them start some therapy to intervene.
Well, let me follow up on that, because I think that most people are familiar with DNA, but RNA might be something that is not familiar to our donors.
Right, yeah, so RNA, I know I'm the scientist, right? So RNA, I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about with in terms of COVID and stuff. So it's not genetics, but it is involved in your genes. So when you experience something, there's changes kind of in genes and how they're expressed, and that's associated with changes in RNA. And so what we're hoping is that there are these indicators associated with progression, and so you'll see those changes in RNA. And so if we can see that and predict that,
Up, down.
Yeah, exactly, up, down.
And I think that when we talk about RNA sequencing, these are not plug and play machines. These are labor intensive and multi-day. That's the real, but they're expensive because they require high professionals to have to run them and calibrate them and interpret them. So how many days to go from start to finish does it take to get RNA sequencing done? And then I don't know if you would know, but how expensive is it to do one patient's RNA sequencing?
Yeah, so it is actually quite expensive. So RNA sequencing has been around for a little bit now, but it's still very expensive to do. I'd say probably about $6,000 to process 3 samples. So it's definitely the funding we need for this. We need it now, right, in order to do the studies and keep us kind of cutting edge and moving forward.
And you guys have the patients?
Yes,
right?
yeah. So we're partnered with the Office of the Saskatchewan MS Clinical Research Chair. Right now, I'm also part of that too, and we perform blood draws now for separate studies. So we have everything kind of in place. We have an ethics protocol to work off of, and yeah, everything's sort of established, yeah.
Yeah, and we're combining the 2 labs for this who also have a history of working together, which is great. And so we already have a client database, we've got a running ethics, we have the research synthesized, that's my career, that's what I do, is looking at ways to use rehabilitation to improve quality of life. And so now it's just a matter of dedicating that time and resources and evaluating it through a research study to get it into clinical practice while also doing these series of blood draws. So it's like a 60-40. It's a partnership here, but the money is 60-40. And like Hannah said, it is time sensitive. Saskatchewan can be innovators in MS care, or we are, and we're going to be very soon. And as soon as we find these blood biomarkers, we've got a arsenal of drugs that we can start trying to actually address the nerve degeneration, right? So everything else has been looking for a cure or looking at preventing the inflammation and immune attack, which is great, right? We've had huge advancements, but even limiting ongoing attacks, you're still getting neurodegeneration. And now we're looking at preventing that neurodegeneration. And so we have an intentionally impaired the blood samples with the rehab, because if we start building new cells in the brain, we actually have to train them on what they're supposed to do, which is where the rehab comes in.
Wow, so impressive. And you've both done such an excellent job of pitching and explaining tonight. The last question is, why should the WLP donors vote for your project?
You want to take this one?
Wow, we've been doing good as a team so far. It's been said already, you guys have a tough job tonight, so I don't envy any of the voters. But voting for our project means voting for women living with MS. And like I said, it's a Saskatchewan disease. We deserve to be innovators in MS research and in MS care, and your money is going to let us do that.
Great. Thank you so much.
So much.
Thank you. Do you want me to do this one?
Just you go ahead and take the next one.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to welcome to the stage our second finalist, Dr. Sarah Hinchke, and I'm pleased that her project is Solving the Forgotten Epidemic, a novel approach using technology to improve access, screening, and treatment for sexually transmitted infections for Saskatchewan women. So, Dr. Henske is a senior resident specializing in emergency medicine at the Royal University Hospital. She has previous research projects already that are involving medical quality improvement in the ICU and regarding pain control within patients. Prior to this, she obtained her Bachelor of Science, a major in biological science and minor in art history, and her Doctor of Medicine from the University of Alberta. And in addition to her clinical work, she has a design business completing projects such as company and conference logos and graphics for publications. And so, so in her spare time, she decided to apply for this grant.
My name is Dr. Sarah Hinchke. I'm a resident physician working in the emergency department at RUH. In my past 4 years working here, I have seen many more sexually transmitted infections, or STIs, than I ever anticipated. Saskatchewan has always had a higher rate of these infections than the rest of the country, but this has acutely gotten worse over the last 3 to 5 years. The most common infections we see are chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, and HIV. Infections spread beyond the cervix into the uterus and the bloodstream. Syphilis is known to cause infections affecting multiple organs in the body, including the brain and the heart. Scarring from these infections is known to result in infertility, and if you are pregnant, it can result in miscarriages or babies being born with congenital syphilis. HIV makes you immunocompromised, susceptible to many infections and even death. There's a significant mental health toll associated with these infections. All of them, including HIV, are very treatable if caught early in the infectious course. The media has recently started reporting on this issue. Saskatchewan's HIV transmission rate is 4.5 times the national average in 2020. A growing number of these cases are women of childbearing age, and increasingly from sexual transmission, especially for women. Both HIV and syphilis rates are worse in Indigenous communities, with rates of syphilis increasing over 1,000% since 2019 in some of these communities. Our solution is 3 things: impactful, innovative, and sustainable. We build a patient website for asymptomatic STI testing. It begins with simple screening questions to determine eligibility. The patient chooses a time for an appointment that is convenient for them. A physician with a special interest in STIs will provide the care. It's designed with patient care at mind, with a portal to communicate investigations and prescriptions as needed. Social services are a click away, and educational resources are built in. You will notice I have no patient advocate with me tonight. Over 240 cases of HIV, 1,900 cases of syphilis, and 6,000 cases of chlamydia in Saskatchewan in the last year, and not a single patient to come forward. As you are hearing tonight, women in healthcare regularly do not receive the same treatment as our male counterparts. This is epitomized by STIs. The amount of stigma is causing irreversible mental and physical damage. The lack of a patient advocate speaks volumes. A lot of work has already been done to ensure the success of this pilot project. My co-applicant is Dr. Beverly Woodell, who is an infectious disease expert. She works with inpatients at RUH. Dr. Tegan Fitch is a family physician who brings expertise on the outpatient management of STIs. Robin Davey is a project manager specialist with 30 years of expertise in growing pilot projects into sustainable solutions. Dr. Laura Rivera is a psychiatry resident with a background in public health who looks at the impacts of mental health on public health problems. My partner company is Ava Electronic Medical, and they provide the platform for which patients will access our service. And finally, we will engage with the SHA's Indigenous Liaison Services and patient care partners.
I'll welcome up Dr. Hinchke, please.
When I told my parents I was heading up a project about STIs, my father replied, "Do you mean SGI?" And my mom just let out this long sigh and gave me a look like only mothers can do. The difference in their responses is very representational of why STIs in women in Saskatchewan is such a big issue that they face different from men. Men are able to stay a bit oblivious. They don't have the same repercussions as women do when they get STIs. My mother's hesitant response was because she is well aware that in society, women with STIs experience stigma and shame. I've seen this time and time again in the emergency department over the last 4 years at RUH. I've changed names and details, but these are true stories. When I was in the pediatric emergency room, I saw Felicity, who is a 14-year-old female. I diagnosed her with pelvic inflammatory disease, which is when the infection has spread up into the uterus. She told me in her small town, there was only one family doctor. She felt too judged, and they were very integrated with her family and the community, so she just didn't get tested. I held the hand of Lauren, who is a 31-year-old, as she had a miscarriage. It was most likely from a chlamydia infection that was not diagnosed yet. She told me there were no family doctors that were accepting patients, and she couldn't afford to take a day off of work to sit in a waiting room to get tested. When we went through med school, they gave one slide about congenital syphilis infections in babies with syphilis. And on it, it showed birth defects and death. But they told us, you will never see this in Canada. There were 16 cases in Saskatchewan last year. And let's not forget about Gloria, who is a 72-year-old. She was misdiagnosed with urinary tract infections until it was realized it was an STI. Because thanks to Viagra, lube, and hormones, Yes, there are outbreaks in our elderly homes as well. Our project is three things. We are impactful, innovative, and sustainable. The stories I just shared show you how far the impact can go. This is an issue that is affecting women from all corners of Saskatchewan, from different demographics, ages, backgrounds. I'm not exaggerating when I say it can impact hundreds to even thousands of women. We are innovative. COVID has opened the door to virtual healthcare solutions. And although there are platforms out there that are offering components of what we want to do, online scheduling or patient portals, there's nothing available like this. Take a very stigmatized problem, one problem, and provide a centralized online solution to get treatment. Available from home, from the public library, from school, from anywhere that you can access an electronic device connected to Wi-Fi. This is the solution for stigmatized issues in healthcare. Finally, we are very sustainable. Most of our costs are upfront in the developmental process, building the platform, recruiting physicians, and marketing. But once that is done, the ongoing costs are minimal. Physicians bill the government for their services, so we don't have to factor that in. And when I say minimal, I'm talking about hundreds of dollars a month. So help us change the story, change the narrative. Felicity instead uses her school computer, gets access to testing, gets treated. That miscarriage in the emerge department doesn't have to happen. No more babies being born of syphilis. And perhaps somewhere along the way, we managed to change the stigma and the narrative a little bit so that my future children know the difference between STI and SGI. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about how you'll reach out to these patients and how they'll be able to find your website?
So a portion of the budget is going towards a marketing campaign. So we will use traditional routes like marketing, but another big component is our partnerships. So I've already started to reach out to the already involved programs within our community. For example, Healthy Mother, Healthy Baby is who distributes STI testing within our schools. Reaching out to our harm reduction sites. So there's multiple other ways using the already established formats that are available to help disseminate that information.
Now, I know that we have Dr. Smith in the audience, who's the Emerge department head, and she must know then about your project. Are you guys planning on implementing, or how are you going to tell patients at RUH when you're on an Emerge shift?
A lot of what we do on a shiftly basis would be just interacting with our patients. So we'll often tell them about this resource or that resource. So part of it will be word of mouth. Another very likely way to disseminate would be visuals, posters. Unfortunately, if you've ever been to Emerge, you may have had to wait in the waiting room. But one good spot to try to disseminate that information is in a place like the waiting room, where you unfortunately are stuck looking at walls for a prolonged period. And lastly, I think word of mouth actually gets things out quite quickly.
And I know that patients sometimes have concern over their health information going somewhere else other than specifically inside the SHA. Any concerns about that for patients?
No, it's a very reasonable thing for people to be concerned about in this day and age. My partner company, Ava Medical, They are already established in multiple provinces across the country. And so fortunately, they've already gone through all of the legislative loopholes and firewalls and navigated that issue so that I don't have to.
So you think that if you were the grant recipient tonight, would you be ready to go hit the ground running?
I have my timeline and plan already ready.
Right.
So yes, I do.
Yeah.
So the final question is why, give us your final pitch for why the WLP donors should choose you this evening.
Yeah. After this thought process about this potential project came to be, I reached out to Dr. Tegan Fitch, who's a specialist out in Regina, about whether she thought it was feasible or not. And she told me, we've been trying to get funding for something like this for years, and we just have not been able to. And so I think there's obviously 3 phenomenal projects tonight, and you really cannot go wrong in the one that you choose. But 3 things that set our project apart would be the connections I've already established and the team that I have behind me to ensure the success, the sustainability factor that once we initially develop, the ongoing maintenance of this service is not dependent on significant funding. The impactfulness of it, from a numbers perspective, this is a vast issue. And then if those 3 things aren't quite enough, I want you to think about the women in your lives, your daughters, your mothers, your sisters. If any of them have ever undergone the heartache of a miscarriage, the self-blame of difficulty getting pregnant, the shame associated with an STI diagnosis, or the pain of losing a child or loved one, that sinking, terrible feeling, I think preventing that for women in Saskatchewan is reason enough as well.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, down to the third.
Here we go.
I'm pleased to welcome our 3rd finalist of the evening, Dr. Jody Reese, and her project, Saskatoon Fracture Liaison Service and Long-Term Care Fracture Prevention. Dr. Reese completed medical school at the University of British Columbia and completed a residency in internal medicine and rheumatology at the University of Saskatchewan. She has a busy community practice, which focuses on various aspects of bone health. She's committed to quality improvement in teaching, and she shares the program director role for the rheumatology program at the University of Saskatchewan. Dr. Reese is the medical lead for Saskatoon's Fracture Liaison Service. Best of luck, Dr. Reese.
I'm Dr. Jody Reese, and I'm a rheumatologist in Saskatoon. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Saskatchewan, along with the associate program director for the rheumatology subspecialty training program. I'm also the physician lead for the Saskatoon Fracture Liaison Service. Our Fracture Liaison Service works on patients with osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is a disease that we don't feel. Much like as we age, we get wrinkles, we get gray hair, and we get joint pain. But when we lose bone, we aren't aware of it until we sustain a low trauma fracture, and that is a broken bone. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men will sustain a low trauma fracture or a broken bone in their lifetime secondary to osteoporosis. Those that sustain a hip fracture, 40% will end up with permanent mobility issues, 25% will end up in long-term care, and there's a substantial increased risk of death that year following that hip fracture. When someone sustains a low trauma fracture, this may include a wrist, a humerus, which is your arm, upper arm, your back, one of your vertebrae, maybe your pelvis or your hip. When you come into hospital for a hip fracture, this is equivalent to a bone attack, much like a heart attack. We expect that when you come in with a heart attack, that you're going to get your angiography, potentially stenting, and go home with the medication to ensure that you don't return with another heart attack. This is called secondary prevention, and this occurs in about 80% of those with heart attacks. The national average for treatment of patients following a low trauma hip fracture is about 15%. Several years ago, orthopedic surgery resident Scott Wilms published the data from RUH showing that only about 6% of patients that sustained a low trauma hip fracture were going home on the appropriate treatment. This describes the care gap in osteoporosis management. A fracture liaison service is a specialized, multidisciplinary, directed service that works in the orthopedics ward to ensure that patients are receiving the appropriate investigation and initiation of treatment to ensure that they don't return with that hip fracture or a subsequent fracture. A hip fracture, or potentially any low trauma fracture that ends up in hospitalization, costs the healthcare system tens of thousands of dollars just for that acute care stay, and up to $100,000 within that first year post-fracture. A couple years ago, we were able to roll out our fracture liaison service here in Saskatoon with the help of many strong, dedicated nurses and residents, both in orthopedics and internal medicine, and we have been able to reach many of these patients that never would have been treated appropriately for their osteoporosis.
My mom did not want to be in a long-term care facility. She was a vibrant, energetic, independent, full of life woman that osteoporosis basically robbed her and our family of the very essence of what the life used to be for her. And that's all she wanted. She just wanted to go back home and have life the way it was. When I think back on the whole situation, if I knew then what I know now, would she still be alive? I, as a clinical nurse educator, had worked with these patients with fractures for many years. And having not focused on the reason, maybe if I had, maybe I would have been able to pick up on this sooner. Maybe the physicians would have been able to pick up on it sooner. Everybody had missed what was happening to her, and she just kept getting worse and worse. We need to build this fracture liaison clinic so that other families don't lose their grandmothers, don't lose their mothers, don't lose their daughters, their aunts, their sisters to this devastating disease of osteoporosis.
Saskatoon's Fracture Liaison Service has been running successfully for the past couple of years through the generous support of donors and foundation support. We know that this should be standard of care to all of the patients and people of Saskatchewan. We hope that through this, we will be able to create greater awareness and show the benefits of our Fracture Liaison Service so that we can create ongoing sustainability of our program through publicly funded support of our service.
This is my mom. This is Cynthia Billy. And this is her story.
Well, thank you everyone for letting me be here tonight. I'm walking out here kind of how we ended our filming the other day, so thank you, Deb, for that. It is emotional. And this has been something that has been, dear to my heart since I was a resident, and we'll say that was maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago. Been working to get this project together. And I think kind of how Deb finished speaking there really sets the tone of how much this does impact people. And just to sort of describe who Deb is. So Deb worked as a clinical nurse educator at the orthopedics ward at City Hospital for over 25 years. And we met when she had set up with my main clinical coordinator, Linda Lesko, who's here tonight to support me. And we had done just the November of 2019, and we had done the clinical, the nurse education days, and it was sort of 5 weeks over speaking to the nurses, all the orthopedic nurses at City Hospital who deal with these patients every single day. And I talked about what is osteoporosis. So it is thinning of the bones. Happens with age, happens with medical conditions. And when your bones become thin enough, you can break them with very minimal trauma. And that's when we talk about what is osteoporosis, so a low trauma fracture. We talked about how it can be preventable, how it can be screened for, much like checking your oil in your car. There's no way that you know you have osteoporosis without either A, sustaining a life-altering fracture, or getting a bone density test. And that's something that is easily done at City Hospital. All of our guidelines say that everyone at the age of 65 should have one, or if you have risk factors, which is a long list of about 200 things, that we should be doing that. And I don't know how many in this room have had a bone density test. Good. And the numbers are getting up, and that's because we've been able to get out there in the community and educate people about how important this is and that this is preventable. So we did those talks for 5 weeks, and Deb was like, this is my story. This is my mom, right? And how would I didn't even see it my own mom, and I'm seeing it in hundreds of patients every day. And unfortunately, the 50 plus patients that are sitting at City Hospital right now waiting to go to long-term care. We get the same stories from patients when we talk to them. Well, why wasn't my mom screened for this? Why wasn't my dad screened for this? Why are we here? Why wasn't this prevented? So this is a condition that really, the numbers show, 1 in 3 women are affected by this, and that's personally, but all of us are affected by it because someone you know is gonna, whether it's your dad or your grandpa, there's men affected by it, but women are affected by it because it changes your life. So oftentimes patients say the primary caregiver for their special needs, daughter or husband, or so now if they end up needing more care and ending up in long-term care, now that other person that they were at home with have both been taken out of their own home. Many of the patients that come into Royal University Hospital are from rural and remote areas of Saskatchewan. So they come in, so the patients are seen, they get their hip repaired after their hip fracture or their humerus fracture. They stay there for usually post-op day 4 or 5, they'll go back to home hospital. No one said you have osteoporosis. No one said this can be treated. No one said, hey, let's check a vitamin D level because everyone in this province has low vitamin D and has squishy bones unless you're taking vitamin D. So that's a very important thing. And so they go back home and oftentimes don't have family doctors there in that community. So what is our service doing? So our service, basically, we have all our pre-formed order sets. So now when patients come into hospital with their hip fractures, I receive that referral. It is screened through my team of now 4 nurses, which has grown over the past couple of years. And we then get all the appropriate blood work to look at why are they fracturing? Do they have low vitamin D levels? Do they have underlying kidney disease? Do they have some other medical condition? So we go through all that. We go to the bedside oftentimes, and once they're post-op and able to communicate, or we find that family member if that patient is demented and they can't communicate, and we're able to connect with them, tell them, these are all the options. Sometimes they have had treatment and that treatment's not working, so we need to find better treatment. They go back home to a home hospital. We will liaise with their family doctors or find someone in their community. We can, we try not to make them travel back into the community, so our nurses are really hard at work on the phone every day, making sure the patients are taking their drugs, because we know that drugs only work as well as patients take them. And a lot of these drugs are, inconvenient. They're once a week drug, once a month drug, and patients forget to take them, or they get some weird side effect and they never take it. And now 6 months, a year later, they're back in hospital with the other broken hip. So that when we look at the FLS, there's a standard of care. It's an international standard of care to ensure that we're improving the outcomes and preventing future fractures. So we have Osteoporosis Canada as sort of our guiding sort of body that looks at providing all the standards. We go above and beyond their standards because we're Saskatchewan and we're unique. And so we need to make sure that we're reaching to all those communities where patients don't have those family doctors. And unfortunately, many of the northern communities don't have appropriate nutrition. They're not taking calcium. There's a lot of smoking and all these risk factors. So we work on that to make sure that they're getting the appropriate medications and that they're taking them, and with a lot of friendly reminders. So this project is not a project. This is a service, and it's functional and it's completely operational, but it's not it's not been given sort of the money from the province to take over, and our nurses are all sort of privately funded right now, and that's because I've been told, well, it's not COVID. All of our money is going towards COVID. But we rolled out the opening of FLS with all our order sets in April of 2020. So as the pandemic was hitting, we were growing our service, and we know that all the patients that come into hospital with hip fractures, they were having delayed care, delayed ORs because of COVID, and their mortality wasn't 25%, it was up to 50% just in the 3 months following that because of the complications. So we need to keep these people out of hospital if we can. And so the other piece of with the nurses is this education. And so we are able to educate family doctors by teaching them about how we need to screen, we need to treat. So we've gone out and done a lot of lunch and learns for family doctors. With the long-term care piece of it is that oftentimes people think that, oh, you're in long-term care, these medications aren't worth it now, they're not going to have benefit. But those are the patients, the most frail patients that are most likely to fall, that are going to benefit most from these treatments. And when we look at sort of what is the numbers needed to treat, and so how many patients need to be on drug to prevent that fracture, and they have very low number needed to treat. So on average, it's about, I would say, like 50 in a 60-year-old, it's down to 8 in an 80-year-old. So these are the patients that are having all their drugs stopped, but these are the ones coming into hospital repeatedly with broken hips. And then they're breaking again around their prosthesis. So these again are all preventable by just standard screening sets when patients come into long-term care, to say, look, do you fall? Can you walk down the hallway? So we've been going through with nurses, our nurses, to now, already short staff service. So we aren't expecting more to happen in long-term care. We're taking our nurses there to help educate there and get all this done. So what makes this project innovative is that component of the education. It's innovative because we're doing that sort of, I would say, more hand-holding, but finding those communities and making sure we're reaching out more than just locally. This is important because, like you saw the numbers, we look at, what is breast cancer affects 1 in 6 women? This is 1 in 3 women, 1 in 5 men. We know that osteoporotic fractures encompass more than heart disease, stroke, and cancer combined every year in Canada. This is important, and no one talks about it. It's not sexy, right? You break your wrist, you get a cast on, you go back home. But that's a sign that you're going to have a high chance of having a hip fracture. So 50% of people that broke their hip had a previous fracture at a time we could have intervened. But unfortunately, that education piece isn't there, and there's that disconnect between the carpenters that are fixing it and the physicians that are going on to prevent future fractures. So thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for listening to Deb's story. And I appreciate you guys being here tonight, and hopefully, you can get your vote.
Great. Great. So I wanted to chat about the difference between primary prevention and secondary prevention. Do you want to let the audience know what those are, and like where you see your FLS clinic intervening?
Yeah. So like I said, the classic FLS, right, is the post-fracture care. So someone who's had a fracture, we talk about secondary prevention. So you've already had the event, so now we're trying to prevent the second event. Primary prevention is that screening, checking your oil, right? Getting that bone density test to say, look, you're at risk. And we have all these risk calculators to put the number in and say, over the next 10 years, are you low, moderate, or high risk for future fractures? So that's the primary prevention. And that's something that should be happening in family practice, like the family doctor, right?
Right. But the FLS is primarily for the secondary prevention, right? Because you don't want the hip fracture. That's the deadly one.
Right.
If you get off lucky with a wrist one at the start, we want to make sure that you don't end up. When patients get fractures in the city, where do they go? RUH.
Yep. So absolutely. And so there's so they'll go to Emerge, and then if it's a wrist, they'll get casted, and then they go to the cast clinic with ortho. So they'll Emerge it, and then they go to ortho. So we have now with Scott Wilms, who was the resident, that showed that only 6% of people were being appropriately treated.
I was with him in that cohort that for CEQIP, that he did that project. Yeah.
And so that's really sad. So the national average is 15%. And when I was told before, when I wanted to do this project as a resident, they're like, no, that's a family doctor job. I'm like, yeah, but when family doctors are doing it, it's a 6% outcome.
Yeah.
Right? Like we deserve better, right? Like heart attacks, 80+% of people get appropriate treatment. Why aren't we doing that for these patients? And so, like I said, we had 14 hip fractures over the weekend, right? At $22,000 a hip fracture. Like if we can prevent those hip fractures, we can open up beds. But like 3/4 of the ortho ward is hip fractures right now. And 50+ beds are waiting at City to go to long-term care, right? So by preventing that, we can keep patients out of the hospital, open up OR time for knee replacements, hip replacements, open up long-term care beds, right? It's cost saving.
So the funding from Women Leading Philanthropy to the FLS clinic, what is it primarily going towards?
So the funding just goes to pay for the nurses. Okay. So the funding, it's just because they're privately paid right now, right? Okay. So that's all that goes to. All the infrastructure, all the work, I bill if I see a patient, and that's
Right.
fee for service. But this stuff and the countless hours that I don't sleep doing this project is just my passion project. That lots of blood, sweat, and tears. And, yeah.
Thank you so much. Give us your final pitch as to why the WLP members should vote for you this evening.
So this project is, like I said, it's a service. It's not a project anymore. This is functional, and I am so passionate about this that I have these nurses that are, Deb left City Hospital to come join this project because she was so passionate about it. And the nurses that are there are engaged. I have nurses like seeing us on the ward. Can I work on your team? Can I do this, right? Like, this is something we're changing. This is a service that needs to happen. It's engaging to be able to educate patients, to be able to educate other healthcare professionals. With your support, we can grow, we can have more nurses, we can spread this, the education to the community, like I said, to keep patients out of the hospital, to keep them out of long-term care, and get the publicity for the government to understand that this needs to be funded. This is standard of care internationally, and we can do that with your support.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr.
so
Reese.
much.
Thank you. We're going to give away the door prize.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask Dr. Donkers, Dr. Henske, would you please join me on stage? Yeah, all three of you can come back out.
I ushered her off. Come on and join us on stage.
Come on out.
Yeah, get out of here. You guys come on too.
So thank you, Dr. Donkers, Dr. Henske, and Dr. Reese. Let's give them all another round of applause, please. I just want to underscore, like, these are incredibly busy women who have a lot on their plate, and on top of everything that they do day to day, they've taken this project on, and in the hopes of winning tonight's $100,000. So it really is amazing, your commitment to this program and to like improving care for patients, and it's deeply appreciated. What a remarkable evening. I'm so impressed with the caliber and the talent and the energy that we've witnessed. Having been through 5 cycles of this now, it's amazing. The pitches just keep getting like better and harder to choose between. It really is incredible to watch over the years how the pitches that have won, and I believe many of them have actually, even the ones that haven't been successful in the evening, have gone on to get funded. If I'm not mistaken, almost all of them have, almost all of them.
All but 2.
So there's something pretty special about putting the project forward, that it gets some awareness and it gets some momentum and change starts to happen. And it's been really incredible to watch as this has happened over the last 5 years.
So Sarah, Jody, Sarah, Hannah, thank you. Thank you for putting yourselves forward. Thank you for coming and speaking to our donors. We know that the Women Leading Philanthropy process is different than all other granting opportunities. And your projects really are truly inspiring and working towards the transformative care that we're looking for the patients at RUH. And as a thank you for your tremendous effort that you've invested in preparing your grant application and your presentations this evening, we would like to present you with a token of our appreciation. And this is courtesy of Rachel and Helberg and Burke. And do you have anything that you'd like to say about the significance of the jewelry that we're going to be providing tonight?
Well, I feel very honored that I'm able to run a business that creates product that is a big part of women's lives at many different milestones. But to me, the bigger joy of this business is that we have the opportunity to use our success as a company to be a part of a lot of different initiatives that are community-based. I hope that when you wear this product, you remember that you've touched all of us this evening. You've inspired us. You've inspired young women who are looking up to you. You've inspired just a whole group of people who feel very honored to be a part of what you're doing in the medical system, and it really just reflects the the energy and passion that you're bringing towards Women Leading Philanthropy in this project. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to take one here?
Oh,
Just one.
Okay. All right.
Just one quick one.
Okay.
Okay, I know you guys are all anxious. I know you guys want to get to voting, and you want to be able to cast your vote, and you want to determine who the winner is. But before we do that, we have our door prize winner, and each of our members have been entered in to win a beautiful pair of sparkle hoops. And the winner had been drawn previously, and it was not from me, but Vicky, you're the winner. So Vicky Martin is the winner. So you can find me later. Vicky is my neighbor and my partner surgeon. So Vicky's a gynae oncologist, and she takes the specimens that I look at in the lab. So I'll be able to, yeah, I don't want mine taken. I'm good. Oh, okay. But I will make sure that you get the sparkle hoops from Rachel. So, okay. Rachel is very forgiving with me with these events because I always take her line at some part in this, and so I stole the show because I was so excited to give you the door prize.
Okay.
Okay.
It was outlined for you to say that, but this is just a bit repetitive, so we might as well. Everyone is excited to vote, so we can.
So
get
it's
to
the
the
time
punchline.
that we can get forward to the voting here, and so it's the time to choose the 2022 Women Leading Philanthropy grant recipient winner. If you are not currently a donor to Women Leading Philanthropy and you would like to join us and have your vote count, please raise your hand, and the RUH Foundation staff member will bring over the registration form and a voting card for you. You can make your commitment with a single high-impact donation of $1,200 now or $100 a month, and we are looking to recruit young philanthropists. So if you are under 40 years of age, then you will be able to join for $600 annually or $50 a month. And the charitable tax receipt is available for the full donation. So that's why we're so thankful to Tracy Duff and Sky Planning and our program sponsors and all the other people that are able to make this happen, because your donation totally funds what the program is that we decide to fund for this year. So you get a full 100% tax donation. So if you have your QR code available now, that option is available for you to pull out your phone and scan your QR code, and you'll be choosing the $100,000 Women Leading Philanthropy grant recipient. You have the option of number 1, Dr. Sarah Donkers, number 2, Dr. Sarah Hinchke, or number 3, Dr. Jody Reese. So those are in the order that the applicants presented in. Once your vote has been entered, look for that green check mark with the word sent, indicating that your vote has been counted. And if you're in the room and you're having any challenges, just let us know. And if you're at home and having any challenges, please comment in the Zoom chat. When are we going to do ours?
We can go. Is your phone here?
Yeah, my phone is here.
Okay, so I think we can do it now.
Okay, let's do ours.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not voting yet? Okay. There is a little bit of a delay, just a little bit, when you're voting before we announce the winners, and that's so we can ensure the process it's locked. Okay. There we go.
Okay.
Moment of truth. Yeah. Oh yeah. I can barely see, but thank you. Thank you, Em, for noticing that. Thank you. I don't know who I'm gonna vote for.
Neither do I. It's really a tough one.
Okay, 31 people have voted, 33. I don't know who I'm gonna vote for.
So this was MS.
Mm-hmm.
This was
STI, and then fractures. I don't know who to vote for. Okay, mine's done. I'm not going to look.
This is the hardest.
This was the hardest
This has been the
one.
hardest.
Yeah. So Jocelyn is tallying the votes. Now we need the champagne toast.
Yeah.
So part of the reason is, like, so we used to go outside and then we used to be able to announce that there was people like, because then you'd be able to pass wine and everything. Oh, okay. While the voting continues, we'll call Dr. Brown Broderick up. We'll call you up. Yeah. What's that? Okay. Well, I think that you should come. Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and.
Yeah.
So as you are casting your vote with us tonight, we just experienced WLP empowers women to determine how their donation dollars will be invested. This is your program, and this is your chance to use your voice and make a real change for women and their families. So while you're still voting, or maybe we're getting close to being done, we're going to welcome back our 2021 grant recipient, Dr. Jennifer Brown Broderick, representing the project titled HPV Self-Sampling for Primary Cervical Care Screening in Under-Reserved Saskatchewan Women.
Hi.
I'm not mic'd. I have to come right up.
Yeah, you got to come right up. But I just want to remind you that we do have some first-time people here tonight. So they weren't here last year when you won. So they got your title, but that's it.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming tonight, and welcome new members. I will say that it's somewhat miraculous that I'm here. First of all, because it says emergency exit between here and here, trying to get through this maze. But secondly, I left the OR today just as the meeting was starting here and told the ladies that I might show up in scrubs, and that's why my hair is all flat and gross. And I almost forgot my shoes, but luckily my partner Vicky, who won the prize, has like 40 million shoes that I could borrow, but I did find a set, so. But thanks for being here. I'm a gynae oncologist, so I treat women's cancers, which gives me the opportunity of both being their surgeons and actually we treat them with chemotherapy. So my project last year, just to summarize super quickly for those of us that weren't here, was about cervical cancer and screening for cervical cancer in a novel way to reach the parts of the province and to reach all those who are not screened. About 18%, well, let's say 40% of all those who are eligible for screening are the only ones that are screened in the province. So we should be up near 85 to 100%, and only about 40% across the province. If you break the province up and look in the north, less than 18% of women are screened. And what does that result in? It results in me seeing women in their 20s, 30s, 40s with advanced cervical cancer because they've never had a PAP, or they had a PAP more than 10 years ago and have been living their lives trying to take care of children, deal with life in general, and have ignored their primary care. The other thing about our province, as you heard from all the other fantastic, my other partner who won a few years ago also said, thank God we won 2 years ago because the projects just keep getting more and more fantastic. So congratulations to all 3 nominees this year. So the province is very distributed, and so we only have 1.3 million people here, but we're spread out all over the province. So how do we get cervical cancer screening to people? Because nobody likes to come in for a pap test. Nobody likes having a speculum exam and coming in for a pap test. So there's a little thing called HPV, which is human papillomavirus, which causes over 90%, close to 100% of all cervical cancers. And it's the virus that causes cervical cancer. We can screen for that, and it's actually more sensitive than a conventional pap test. So my project was to do primary HPV screening. So do a swab and let the patient or the people who haven't been screened do the swabs at home. So I brought a little envelope because what's exciting about the update is last week and even today, this is what your money went to and is going to, is these packages, 250 of them went out to people in the province who hadn't had a PAP in 4 years, offering them to do a self-vaginal swab in their home, mail it in, postage paid, with a little consent form to our lab, that's where 99% of the cost goes, is to run the primary HPV test. And Trish from our UH Foundation, yeah. The other 250 are actually going to be distributed in clinics, mostly remote clinics or inner city. When we talk about underserved, we talk about the inner city, transgender people who don't want to normally have a speculum exam and who are hesitant also to come in. So I have partners at West Winds Clinic. I have a couple of family docs in the very far north who I had the luxury of meeting in person for the first time. This past Friday, I presented at a family medicine conference, and I was able to present not only the new cervical cancer screening guidelines, but about my project. And so I met Laura Marshall and from Isla Crosse and L'Orange and North Battleford, 3 physicians I was able to meet, and we will be able to, some of you kind souls are going to stuff the other 250 envelopes and help me out, and we're going to distribute them to those family docs who will hand them out in their clinics to anybody who also wishes to participate. So we will be, literally that's happening right now. So here is your money in motion. What's coming next is once the swabs, hopefully almost all the swabs that we hand out will come back to us. The interesting part is the mail-out swabs, which Manitoba has run a concurrent study, and only about 9% of those swabs come back. So handing out the swabs is likely going to yield a much higher yield. I will give the patients all of their results and then refer if necessary if they need what's called a colposcopy or follow-up. Part of the money has also gone into purchasing a portable colposcope, which is kind of just a special microscope that looks at the cervix once there's abnormalities, and there are none in the north. It's about a $20,000 piece of equipment, but Northern Medical Services can't maintain one up there. It's not a device that's used every day, and so they're hesitant to put it up in the north. So I have purchased a portable one, or we'll purchase a couple of portable ones. We're still in the process of getting Health Canada approval because it's FDA approved, but it's from Sweden. But we're very close. In which case then gynecologists can go up to Isla Crosse and L'Orange rather than even those patients needing to come down to Saskatoon. So even better, getting people the healthcare they need where they live.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Okay,
sorry.
Can you mention Carla as well too?
Yes.
So
she's my main gal.
Yeah.
So Carla Holinati.
Yeah, this is how the donors affect the donors as well too. So Carla. Yeah.
So Carla was at my side. I didn't mention her because she's in the city, but she was at my side on Friday presenting on the new cervical cancer guidelines. But family doc at West Winds, who not only is a member, but is my main squeeze in terms of my right-hand lady and family doc who gets stuff done, because that's what we're all about. So all of you people in this room are doers. I can tell because you're here. And you want to do things not by skipping or by trying to cut shortcuts, but by cutting through the red tape. And that's what Carla does for me too. She's actually helping me get access to her electronic medical record at her doctor's office so that I can, easily refer people. She'll be handing out swabs as well to her patients. So there's a prime example. Not only do we meet people at these meetings, we forge relationships, we get things done because we're doers. So I highly encourage you, if you're not already a member, join and then tell your friends, because this is how we transform care in Saskatchewan.
So I'll tell you one other thing is that I'm just going to horn in on.
Yes.
So So Carla, Jen, and I all sit on the Provincial Cervical Screening Task Force, a task force that we created, did not wait for the invitation on that one. And this was before Jen had applied for her grant. And on the agenda that we have every month is, I will say that today when we were at our provincial strategic planning meeting, we talked about how liquid-based cytology, which we have just transitioned out of conventional pap smears to putting it in the liquid media, that the first briefing note on that in Saskatchewan was in 1998, and it took 18 years to bring it in. So now on the agenda is that should we offer primary HPV screening? So instead of the liquid-based cytology that we do first and then reflexing to HPV, should we offer primary screening? And we're not waiting for another 18 years. So now the standing agenda item is, how is Jen's project going to get us to primary HPV screening faster? So this has already transformed the way that we do things in the province, and that was all your donation, and that was all your catalyst to get this going. Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. So this is all you that have done this. So it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I will tell you. But it's thanks to people like you who make it all possible. So thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, we're all set. Oh my goodness. Okay, thank you, Jen. I'm really proud of you. We're really proud of you and the work you're doing for the HPV primary screening and sampling. I want to say that as women leading philanthropy donors, it's such a privilege to be part of this amazing work, and we are given this voice to make such an impact to the people in our province.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible to hear that story and to know that this is really just the start of pretty monumental change for screening for women in our province, and work that was going on for 18 years. It's really.
I really do think it's because the men were in charge,
yeah.
And
it's amazing.
Get out of
it's
here,
amazing.
Daryl.
So thank you again, Jen, and I can't wait till we hear an update that this is just like the common practice and that everyone's getting mailed one and you no longer have to go in for a PAP, and we're collecting the samples for 100% of the women in the province. If you weren't here last year and didn't know, there was also, actually in 2020, there was also a project that was so incredible and did not get funded, Dr. Bearwall's project. And after our meeting and the $100,000 presentation, one of our donors came forward, Debbie Vidal, and funded the entire project. So I just want to recognize Deb Vidal. For making the funding of Dr. Bearwald's project a reality. If some of the stories touched you tonight and you want to learn more about the amazing work that's being done through WLP, please reach out and talk to them. Obviously, being a member is one part of participating in this amazing project, but there's other ways. You know, we can all participate at different levels that are meaningful and appropriate to us. So again, a huge thank you to Deb for funding that entire project. It's just incredible.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So
Thank you, Jocelyn.
It is now the time. Oh.
Okay.
We're really serious about awarding this. It's the time we've all been waiting for. The votes are cast online and in person and have been tallied. And I want to say thank you to Dr. Sarah Donkers, Dr. Sarah Hinchke, Dr. Jody Reese for being here tonight, for sharing your vision and your passion for the future of women's healthcare with our amazing Women Leading Philanthropy donors. It's been a truly inspirational evening. I just really am in awe of what you are doing on top of everything that you already do. And I'm so proud to be a part of this program.
Very sincere good luck to all of you. We do very much appreciate you bringing your passion forward to share with us tonight and your commitment to Saskatchewan and the patients every day. Okay, should we,
Drum roll, please.
drum roll, please.
And the winner is.
Oh, okay.
And the winner is
Oh my goodness.
Dr. Sarah Donkers. So as Dr. Donkers joins us on stage, I just want to acknowledge Jen and Jocelyn and your tremendous efforts. I'm sure everyone would agree that choosing a winner was incredibly challenging tonight, and we really appreciate your effort. And a huge congratulations on the start. Just into it, I love it. A huge congratulations to Sarah for the start of your project. This is so exciting, and we cannot wait to follow your journey as you kick this off. And so the next step after tonight is we're going to see you in January for your first project update. We definitely keep tabs on what's going on, and we're excited to hear about the progress when we all come back together. And congratulations once again.
Thank you to the new members that have joined us here tonight, along with our current donors. I think that it's a testament to our 3 finalists that you have really moved a lot of people in this room tonight. And so we have high expectations for you over the next year. And we really do look forward to seeing you all at our project update in January.
And I just want to say that if you have enjoyed tonight's program and what's happening in WLP, I was saying earlier tonight that I feel like WLP is Saskatoon's best kept secret. I really feel like mountains are being moved within this group very quietly and stealthily. Please tell people about it. If we can all bring one guest next time, it's gonna make a big difference in creating a larger pool of funds that can potentially go on to fund more projects down the road.
So we're bringing the formal part of our evening to a close, but we do want to welcome you to refreshments in the atrium outside, and we look forward to conversing with everyone and getting to reacquaint ourselves with our donor groups and members.
And I just wanted to say that as tonight's award gets awarded, we have now contributed $600,000 through this group, and I think you all owe yourself a round of applause for that. So ladies, thank you again for coming tonight, for your commitment to the program, both time and financially. And I look forward to seeing you all again in January. Yeah. Please get home safe tonight and have a wonderful evening.
Great. Do some pictures.
Hey, congratulations. Please.
How are you feeling?
Oh, congratulations.
Okay.